social segment, we'll have an explosive conversation on if Africans and black people at large are predisposed to entertain corruption practices against them by their leaders. So stay tuned for that in the social segment. Na bila kusahau, tapokea mziki toka DJ wetu machachari mleta habari DJ OmoshFaya, na tutadunda kule viwanjani na Micah jezi yake nambari 7 mgongoni akituletea habari za michezo. So moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios ni mimi mtangazaji na mwanahabari wenyu mpendwa Ali Badawy. Wengi wananiita mteule na kule kwetu niite mjukuu wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Karibuni tena.
Now, let's talk politics.
Now, this hour in news and politics, we'll be discussing the politics behind Kenyan sports and what it is that ails our sporting fraternity. What solutions have the two leading political coalitions proposed to improve the welfare of our sports personalities? So stay tuned for that and more, because it's going to be a mixture of sports and politics. And I'm your anchor, Ali Badawy. It's Friday, the 22nd of July, and we are coming to you live from Kilimanjaro Studios outside Washington, D.C. So please remember to subscribe to our OneMic Show YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at OneMic Show. On panel with me tonight is Mr. OneMic Kamakawa. We have our resident DJ, OmoshFaya. Micah will be joining us via Zoom, and Ruth is back in the studio. And without much further ado, we are going to get started right away. We're going to make sure that that Micah is live, because this is going to be a politics conversation today, but it's a politics behind sports. So Micah will be guiding us through this conversation. Now, we know that Kenya has been a sporting powerhouse dating back to pre-independence days. We have witnessed our athletes win gold time and again for decades, starting from the 60s. Now, we have also seen our rugby team win an IRB Sevens circuit tournament in Singapore. Our cricket team has made it to the World Cup semi-finals. Our women's volleyball team, the Malkia Strikers, and domestic clubs have countless continental titles in their trophy cabinet. Now, despite this level of success, Kenyan sporting fraternities have, for the most part, been subjected to a lot of hardships, from being stranded in airports abroad to being forced to seek private donations for their operations. Now, these are just but a few issues that the Kenyan athlete must face in order to represent their country that's unknown to a lot of people. Now, on the show tonight, in the wake of a poor showing at the World Athletics Championships in Oregon, want to unveil the politics behind Kenyan sports. And we're going to try to understand why off-field issues have a big impact on how our athletes perform on the field. Now, to get us started with this conversation, I want to get started with Micah. And Micah, I want you, as you just salimia watazamaji na wasikilizaji, I want you to give us a brief recap, or maybe what happened at the Oregon World Championships and how this may have impacted our athletes' performances. I mean, what happened prior that may have impacted our athletes' performances. Micah, twende kazi.
Ladies and gentlemen, wasikilizaji, my fans, everybody else, thank you very much for joining us for this whole production for the OneMic Show. Ali, good evening to you, and good evening to Ruth, Omosh, and OneMic. Now, I just want to say that we had, we all remember we were excited about Oregon. We were all excited. We had hopes on the athletes who had qualified for the World Championship, and especially the whole world was looking at one particular athlete, who's Ferdinand Omanyala. He was expected to bring a race to the current holders or the winners of the eventual 100 meters. But then we had an issue 2 days prior to the championship that Omanyala had not even left the country and he didn't have a visa. And at that moment, not only just Omanyala, but several other athletes from other countries had the same issue of the visa. So there's been a debate back and forth. Right now, continuing debate back and forth on who's responsible, who's to blame for this debacle. There was a list of 32 joyriders. Hiyo list sijui kama kuna mtu ashaiona. Tunajua mmoja 31. We're waiting for 31. We know one. We know one is Ambassador Amina Mohammed's daughter, who is in that list of 32. Tunangojea kile 31 atuambie. So basically there's been a lot of politics around it, on how it happened, what it happened, how it happened. But based on the word from the year, after doing some research, talking to some people, is that it is true. The story of Omanyala having to go through a second screening is true. Remember, he had a doping incident back in 2018 that had caused some delays. And they just wanted to get some more clarification if he had indeed qualified. And he wasn't bound to participate in anything. And basically, just the way if you were to apply right now for a driver's license and you had something that needed an affidavit or a court clearance, they would ask for it. So there was a delay on his visa because of that. And maybe that part is factual. The part about the 32 people, I don't know. There might be 32 people who are in. There might not be 32 people who are in. Right now, I just want to focus on the facts that have been proven. Is that there was a delay on this process and how you were processing it. That continued, and among other factors. These are other factors in the but it says between that and other factors, there's a reason why he traveled and he landed 3 hours before his heat qualifiers rate. He ran his heat, finished third. And usually you guys have traveled from Kenya, you come to here. Yeah, jet lag usually hits you the next day, right? Mara mingi Muski aliye akitudanganya hapa vile when he lands going to Jombo the next day, then he has to call out ama anaenda job.
Wewe acha kuchocha. Unachoma.
Yeah. So that's what caused the build up there. But then another thing that also came out of all this is that the athletes, most athletes, usually travel with their coaches. They travel with a physio. They travel with a supporting cast. Most of the athletes didn't have the supporting cast. That is why we see even when they were doing the cool downs, when they were warming up, they were just warming up by themselves. Most of them are saying they didn't expect to come to a world championship with such a thin squad. There are others who believe that they could have come earlier than the week that they came. So most teams, other people came in earlier, got acclimatized, were training here already 2-3 weeks prior to the championships. So the teams that just felt, they at least felt like the preparations are not done properly. They, at least most of them right now are going straight to London for the Commonwealth. So that's more acclimatization, more time for them to be able to train. But for the World Championship, like any other, most of the time when we go out to represent the flag, there was just a poor preparation. Alibatu.
Okay, thank you so much, Micah. Thank you so much, Micah. There's certain things that I'm not, quite sure about in terms of the preparation. I mean, what's factually out there is that we know for a fact, we know for sure that there were visa delays, especially for Omanyala, which was out there in the news. It was out. Everybody knew that there was delays with getting his visa, and of course that may have contributed to the poor showing that we saw. Now he's one of the few who got his visa delayed. There's others who went there, a couple of days before they actually got on the track to race on the race day. So I think the next meet that's coming at Birmingham, which is the Commonwealth Games, I think that's where we're going to try to figure out whether that was the issue, or if there might be another underlying issue. And at this point, I want to introduce, the other panelists, OmoshFaya, karibu sana.
Asante sana Bonali.
Okay. All right, good. So what are your quick thoughts on maybe why there was a poor showing? I mean, now, to be clear, the event is not over. We still have other events happening tonight, I think happening tomorrow. So the event is not over. So there's still other chances for Kenya to win gold. But generally, in some of the races that we expected Kenya to win, like the 1,500 meters, we did not. The 3,000 meter steeplechase, we did not. So what are part of the things that happened pre the athletes coming to Eugene, Oregon. What do you think are some of the things that may have contributed to their poor performance?
For me, and based upon the things that we have seen and what traditionally happens, to me it just I think bottom line comes down to poor planning and preparedness. I don't know if I would say this is on the athlete side in terms of preparedness, because there's training that you do prior to, and then there's training that you do, and I don't know if they put them in a camp or something, or they have meets, or they have something that they do prior to, okay, kuna ile this the selection point, and then once the team has been selected, do they then now take them, go to camp, and then say, okay, we're now going to train for X amount of time, and then we will leave to go to, wherever the games are going to be. But it seems there was the planning seems like was not necessarily the best. And though what came out was this whole travel thing with Omanyala, because, it's Omanyala.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of, to be fair, other countries were even having visa issues.
Yes, it wasn't only
so
Kenya.
It wasn't only Kenya that were having visa issues coming into the U.S. And the U.S. has a certain policy that they use, with the visa processes, and also probably the way they do the vetting. And maybe that's why, as Micah alluded to, the fact of Omanyala possibly having an issue at some point. So they needed further clarification. He needed to come back, and maybe that information or communication did not come down to him in time for him to go back and respond and give those guys the things they wanted, because it's not like somebody could do it for you. You have to physically go there.
Yes.
Which means it needs to be an appointment. You have to speak to somebody, and they have to speak directly to you, not speak to Ministry of Sports or speak to Athletics Kenya. They have to speak to the person who's applying for the visa. So that that's the Omanyala part. But then in terms of the team overall, I just think it's plain old outright preparedness. And we've had these issues, or we've had talks about our teams and the cast that they carry with them, other than, say, the athletes themselves, the support cast,
Yeah.
The physios, the therapists, the dietitian, whatever you want to call them. All those people are supposed to help keep you in a tip-top shape, so that when you're in between competitions, then at least your body is getting back to nutritional shape. It's getting back to whatever your physical strength and or ability is supposed to be. And rugby is a true picture of that. We've seen that happen to the rugby sevens team, and that when everything is working the way it should work, then our athletes, I think, are very superior to others, because they work with nothing from my perspective, in terms of what they have from a training perspective.
You're saying in comparison to what we see other countries provide for their athletes.
Yes, because those other countries, either people are professionals or semi-professional for the country.
Okay.
Meaning your job is you're a professional athlete for the country. Our guys are people who are picked. You come, you do your meets on behalf of the country, and then after that, you go on to, whatever it is that you're doing on an individual basis, or you go back to pasture, then somebody else comes back for whatever other games you get picked, and so on and so forth. So we don't have a staple of people who are sitting in, say, in camp, and we're saying these are the guys who we're training for the country, and they're, we'll see this person come in time and time again in, say, 800 meters, or in, 400, or in 100, or in 3,000, or whatever. We always have a rotating door between 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. Marathon, not so much, because that's one heck of a race. But again, we see things like that happening, which comes down again, plain outright preparedness.
Okay, good.
But let me ask something. I mean, when you talk about preparedness, there's also the issue of, it's not that these things were just organized the other day.
No. They were not.
They have been. It's been on the calendar for a while.
Yeah.
At least, let's say, on a minimum 1 year. On a minimum.
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise tournament.
But when were the teams selected? And when were these people selected? When did they go to camp? When did they start training? And were they afforded that type of training that was enough? Go ahead, Micah.
So we can say the last people who qualified were. I remember we talked about it even when we had that. When we had the championship in Kenya, where a lot of it was star-studded, and people came in, and they think that when Omanyala broke the record that day.
The Kipkeino Classic.
Yeah, the Kipkeno Classic. Yeah, I think that was the last time that most people qualified for the World Championship. But most people had at least, like I said, the person had at least amount of time was like 2 to 3 months to prepare. So people knew already when they were qualified. The athletes who were supposed to qualify knew a long time ago that they had qualified for it. So the preparations, in terms of these preparations, most of these people, we can also put it to this. Most of these guys spend time in the training camps. Utawapata Iten, Utawapata Nairobi, wherever they literally spend the time. You've qualified most of the time at the training camp. Sometimes also just how your preparation was made is an issue. So maybe when you're athletes, the mental state of the athlete, how is your mental being is. The other athletes just prepared better than us. Others maybe had better facilities than us, but it just shows you how competitive these things are. Because do you know when you go to the qualifier for this championship, there's a time that you need to run to qualify for the Olympics. In Kenya, especially the long distance races, they take 4 people per race, right? You will find 20 people broke that time that's supposed to allow you to run for the Olympics. So the competition is so high also. So that just shows you in Kenya. Then these other people in other countries also probably have the same thing. They've been training all along. So it's a lot of factors that come in. But it starts from the environment the athletes are given to start that training.
Yes. Okay. So yeah. So very, very interesting information here coming from Micah. And these are things that we've had discussions before in the studio. I want to bring in Ruth to the conversation. She's not been in studio for a while. So Ruth, salimia watazamaji, and just tell us what your brief thoughts are about this whole kerfuffle, debacle, shenanigans going on in the Kenyan sporting scene.
And before she answers, hii mambo ya summer inaendeleaje? I mean, what's good with summer? What's new? What's popping?
Why has his face changed?
What my face has changed?
His face changed
His
when
face
he said
is-
that. Yeah, it changed.
I'm glad it cannot be seen on video. Satan. Go ahead, Ruth.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Although, nawatembelea.
Okay.
I'll be back. Summer is summering, okay?
We've just been told we don't have a life. But anyway.
No, that's not it.
Mhm.
That's not it. No, yeah, the summer is just busy. But I to be honest, I think I've been disappointed by Kenyan sports, but it's not just Kenyan sports, mostly just African sports. We do not invest well in sports, and that it can be a legit profession, and the idea that everybody's off just fending for themselves when it comes to sportsmen in Kenya it's disheartening. And I think this is what we're saying in Oregon. May I also say, I think because but the marathons, honestly, the Olympics, it's really hard to find a place where you actually can celebrate a Kenyan journey 100% because somebody's backing them, either the government or these private partnerships. It's just disheartening. And it's so sad that I'm not the only one, because I was talking to somebody's like, did you know what Omanyala was until this whole debacle? I did not know who is.
Okay. And you see, and you can't blame
No.
Ruth for not knowing that.
Nope.
Remember, we knew who, even people who are not basketball fans, we knew who LeBron James was, even before
Yes.
he touched an NBA ball.
Yes.
Because of the marketing machine that was out there.
Mhm.
And I think that's another problem that that our whole sporting infrastructure has. When I talk about sporting infrastructure, I mean, like everything, the marketing, the media, and everything. The media wants to go focus when someone has won, but they're not giving us the background story. We already know, like kids who are in high school right now, it's already known those who are going to potentially become champions. It's already potentially known. There's no marketing around them. And I think sometimes there's a focus on the few who are getting gold medals. But remember, Kenya has a whole array of athletes. You see, like what Micah said, maybe there are 20, marathon runners who've made the cut, but only 4 can go. I know there was a time when David Rudisha said in Olympics, they only take 3 per country. There There was a time David Rudisha said in Kenya, the number of marathon runners who make the cut, the Olympic cut time, are more than 800. More than 800. Yes.
What?
Yes, the ones who make the Olympic cut time. It's more than 800 because the Olympic cut time is lower because they give a chance to any country in the world that wants to come and participate. So there are so many runners, who are out there who are not getting opportunities. So me, I think the middle, not the top 10%, the middle 20 to 90. These athletes were in the middle there. There's some athletes who are very talented who, by any standards in any other country, would be, like on top of their game. But we don't have a system to accommodate them. I'm talking even athletes who maybe don't even go to the Olympics. This ones who just take part in the local races and everything. If there was a marketing machine behind them, it would help them like blossom. Now here's an example. There's a Kenyan who was running for Israel who won a gold medal. I'm not remembering her name.
Israel or Kazakhstan?
He actually won the first medal for Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Forget about Kazakhstan.
It was an Israeli.
There was an Israeli.
It's a dude, yeah.
No. The Israeli was it was a woman.
It was a woman for the
Yes,
Israeli?
the one who won gold. It was a woman.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me check.
And that was the first gold that Israel won. Now, this lady had actually, I was reading her story, she had gone to Israel as a house help for a Kenyan diplomat. And then she used to run around this park, and someone spotted her and saw talent and just picked it up from there. Now, this person who ended up being the coach and then ended up being the husband. There was some other shenanigans going on there. But guess what? She still won
The
gold.
gold, yes.
What that tells you, there are so many like her who are just running around, but they just don't have the right like personalities around them to be able, or the right system around them to develop that talent.
Well said.
I want to remind the listeners that you're tuned into the Politics Hour of the OneMic show. We are discussing issues that are related to politics and sports and what's ailing the Kenyan sporting fraternity. Now, later this hour, we will be discussing party manifestos and solutions that are necessary to improve our sporting prowess. We want to know what the two leading coalitions are saying about sports, because I think that's something that needs to be diagnosed. And I want you to stay tuned for that. Then please remember to share our live stream and like our Facebook page. Now, this is very, very important. If you're listening to us on Facebook or on YouTube, please share on your timeline so that other people can get to listen to us. Facebook kind of played around with the algorithms. We learned that.
Satan.
And people don't get notified when we go live.
It's like you have to go back again and redo it or something.
Yes. So what you guys can do for us, if you're tuned in, just go to your live stream, just hit that share button. It's not going to cost you anything, I promise. And this will help us better reach more people. And we are also active both on Instagram and YouTube. I hope you guys go seeing our shorter videos. So please follow, subscribe, and keep spreading the word. Now, before we continue with this very interesting conversation, Uno, I want you to tell us, what do we have in store later in the social segment tonight?
So this is basically about how we predisposed to corruption, Africans and black people. There's also a lack of some intellectual thing, and that is why certain things happen to us, because we seem to sort of always be on the back burner. We're not innovative or whatever. It was a very interesting conversation that I had that I'm going to share later on. But are we predisposed? Corruption. Are we programmed to be corrupt?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Back to the conversation. A lot of comments were coming through as we were talking. Yakobo Simba, karibu sana.
Mr. Kizomba.
Yakobo anasema mnakumbuka PE was taken by maths and science teachers.
Yes.
Hatuchukuli sports serious.
Or physics.
And it's funny. This was everywhere.
But let me also say this, like even in let's say sports, like even here, let's say soccer. I'm going to talk about soccer. I don't know about Pee-wee football or whatever, but I'm going to talk about soccer here. Especially if toys are starting to get involved in soccer, ideally it's somebody who has never played soccer, from my experience.
You're saying, say that again?
Soccer.
Yeah.
Football.
Yeah.
Yeah, not but soccer, like
Yeah.
when you start introducing your kids to some of those camps, those when
Yeah.
Kianza, you find that most of the coaches are individuals who have have never played soccer. I've never been involved in soccer. They're just probably somebody, then they're just coming in and they're just going to teach you how to kick the ball. Perfect example, high school. A certain high school. Let me know. So put it this way. The coach was making guys just run. They're not playing fundamentals. They're not practicing fundamentals. They're not playing, like comedy practice, kicking the ball, set pieces or whatever. To a point where you find some of the students who are soccer, who are even in clubs, in organized club soccer, are getting frustrated because the coach is making them do things that they don't need to do. They're not even focusing on what they need to focus on. Yes, on the basics.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
All right. And Pablo here is saying, I will be keen to see if any government officials will be at the JKIA to receive the Kenyan athletes when they land from Oregon after the poor performance. Jacobo says, right now, Ngoja Mika, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to Uno. Let me just go through some of these comments. Jacobo says, like right now, Gava should capitalize on Omanyala and Kitwanyi fame to propel sprints and court games. Lakini Pardiem ndio zao. And then let me see. Slay is saying he read the story about the husband who is actually a coach. This is the Kenyan who's running for Israel.
Yeah.
And I think that's another issue, like now Kenyan athletes, like taking citizenship in other countries, like we used to know it used to happen in countries like Netherlands, in the UK, but now they're going even to Kazakhstan, like countries that you'd never think you'd see a Kenyan athlete going to.
Even Qatar.
But I would not blame them with all this that's happening.
Wouldn't.
And then Stephen Batty says there's a breed of Mexican Kenya runner kids who we don't know about and someday will show up. Okay, we are waiting to see that. And then we also have Slay here saying maybe it's time we started hiring people who have experience in sports, which makes me wonder, are there degree programs for sports management in Kenya or something in that line? We're going to get back to that later. I want to go to Micah. And Micah, while you're responding to Uno, I want you to contemplate, like maybe what government factors, things that can be done quickly. We know there will be a new government coming. There will be a new president after the elections in August. So what are some of the quick things that the government can do? Or rather, what are those things the basic things that government is meant to be doing that they're not doing that can immediately have an impact on the well-being of our athletes? Mika.
Okay, so my response is actually going to come in and bed in with exactly what you asked me, because I was going to tell you see, what that high school, whatever they were doing, is actually considered illegal in this country. When you start taking kids to play soccer, park, those organizations, yes, that league already has to have some certain accredited coaches who have had certain badges for that league to just take place. Yes, tutaenda turegister timu yetu, sisi ndo tunatrain watu hii, but in overall they're supposed to be, for that league to be just there has to be some badges that those coaches have got. Now in America, it's recommended, especially when the kids start going to age group soccers and age group tournaments and age group, for you to be considered a coach, like for a team that's registered, insured and everything, the coach has to have badges. So basically they ensure that at the beginning, at the standard of it, you are trained to a certain point of where you can start and train. You can start, camp, train, teach the fundamental basics. Like, you don't spoil that young part of it. Academies, clubs, most schools right now, it's being enforced. Nobody can just walk in and be a coach in an organized team. There are badges you're supposed to attain. And as you go with the age of the players, you get those badges, So they have set of rules that are followed. And that is what Kenya needs to put right now. Yes, there's so many people who can coach games by just getting the knowledge of the game. Ile kuangalia game unajua, right? Hata sisi kuwa macoach fantasy football na kwa PS na wengine pia mtaani unapanga vitu. Hata ukiwatch Arsenal kuna time wose Mateta ni umbwa. angechezesha huyu na huyu. Unaona wewe ni coach kumshinda. So there's that. But if you put requirements in place whereby with those requirements, when you're dealing with a certain age, because remember, kids when they are young is when they learn stuff. They're like new computers. You put data in them. That is the most important aspect of it. Harnessing that talent when they don't even know that they have it. Vile umesema haujui kucheza ball, unafundishwa, then unarealize wewe ni mzuri, kwa hiyo then they pick that and they concentrate of it, wakienda like wakishift wakienda. In you see here, you're told take your kids to some activities, take them blah blah blah, do this and this. When you have that mentality inside you already, that you have to register your kid for activity, right? You don't know how much you're giving to the sport and the culture, because that is where that talent is going to be pulled out. Kenya ulikuwa unajua kucheza ball na umekataza usicheze ball, unajua kucheza ball juu, unajua wewe ni mnoma ball juu, unataka kuliwaka na mapesa zako. Labda tu unajua kucheza hiyo ball na una place ya kuharness hiyo talent. Kuna watu wengine kufanya mchezo ilikuwa ni hapo. If we have systems where they put in place whereby we know we have to start putting our kids into these activities, drama, ballerina, ice hockey, swimming, nini. You see, you don't know, but it's talent hunting. Then you realize my kid loves this. He likes this. You start concentrating on that. But the next time you know, you have a pro in your hand. We don't have that. Yetu kuandika bahati nasibu. I'm rich enough to do it. I can take my kids there, or huyu siku moja angukia afike huko. So when we have to put in policies, we have to put in structures that allow it to make it easy, even just for the nurturing of that talent, to create that talent. Now, when that talent pool is picked up, this is where we put in conditions, structures. Go deep back into the grassroots. We have a very good school system that has a very good sporting system, right? It usually starts from zonals, then the zonals B, then from B districts, then provincial, then national. Like it's like a league. Mnapigania mkipanda juu, mkienda playoffs, as you go through. Channel that, use that. This kid spends a lot of time in school. Build academies that work with schools. Enhance that talent. Usikuwe tu ati ball mnatafuta first team pekee. PE, kuna mtu amesema PE ilikuwa inachukuliwa na mwalimu wa math na mwalimu mwingine. PE should be enforced to be a part whereby, and PE you play a sport that you like. Even in America, when you go to gym, like you will do something meaningful. Not the gym to kukaa. They should enforce that too. It goes again. Talent acquisition, na pia it provides a conveyor belt of talent all the time to these school teams. School teams in America, if you go to play, they take you. Once you make the team, they'll make sure you play a team. You'll play a game. Whether they're winning a championship or not, they'll make sure you'll play a game. They have to make sure that all the training they've done to you, you've experienced it. You'll have to dress one day. Same thing. Ensure that you're just not building teams for the sake of just winning, but you're building teams in terms of exposing that talent to that sport, making them learn to that sport. Then make the leagues to become profitable. Make the professional tournaments to become profitable. Make them in a way whereby they're attractive to investors, they're attractive to owners, they're attractive to their teams. That is the only way how we can make our own games become better. We will always say Premier League is good, but it's not. If only FC and Gora, the two entertaining, is the best game. Watu wataenda kuona Premier League kwa DStv, wataenda kuona game ya Gora kwa DStv, kwa nini kwa stadium. Back to you, Ali.
All right, thank you so much, Micah. A lot of comments here coming in, like from the people who are watching us and listening to us. This is one of those topics that I always wish we could know a way in which we could put a priority. It could be prioritized in such a way that it's taken seriously. One very disappointing thing that I've seen, like the past couple of weeks, we've been seeing a lot of debates taking place, be they county, be they, more recent, the Nairobi gubernatorial debate, and then more recently the debate for the deputy presidential candidates. The one most disappointing thing, I mean, of course, besides the fact that the diaspora was never mentioned, and this is despite the fact that we are the ones who are currently sustaining the economy. So that was one thing. Second thing, sports, nothing. You know, like the organizers, everyone, they felt that it wasn't necessary, especially in a week when all this was happening, the debacle of Omanyala. I thought, you know, like maybe they would throw something in, even if it's something small on sports, which shows you where the infrastructure that's meant to support our sports people, being the government and also the media, are in collusion to treat this as something in the back burner. Why am I mentioning media? You will notice one thing in media. Whenever there are cuts, whenever there's any austerity measures within the media, the first people usually to go are sports. And right now, if you guys have not noticed, in the major media houses, and let me call out Citizen in particular, you know, like when they did the austerity measures, they cut a lot of sports anchors. So nowadays you see Yvonne Okwara, you know, like sometimes presenting sports. She's a good journalist, no doubt. You're seeing sometimes Jeff Koinange, you know, like doing the sports news. And this is where, you know, like there's a certain depth that lacked a very great sports journalist that they had. And the other problem that happens is that when you're a good journalist, you're now told now you have to move on from sports and go to politics. That happened to a guy called Wahiga Mwaura. Wahiga Mwaura was a top of the line sports journalist, but because I think they saw his talent and I think he had a good presence on screen, they moved him. Actually, Wahiga Mwaura has done, you know, like very interesting, you know, like sports stories, which we normally don't see. Remember, like those very fancy pictures of Morans playing cricket that you've seen and jumping up so high? Wahiga is the one who did that story. You know, like you can find it on YouTube and go back and check it when he was a full-time sports journalist. He also did the investigative piece on Rio. You know, like that's a moment when people came to learn about joyriders who accompany Kenyan delegations that go to these sporting events, to Olympics, to the World Cup, even despite the fact that Kenya wasn't playing in the World Cup. So a very good sports journalist, but he was promoted to mainstream reporting, politics.
But I talking to some Kenyan journalists, they literally, and this is a reflection of society in Kenya, they look down on sports. Like I remember one of them is a science reporter and went to Harvard and MIT on a fellowship. And we both would listen to Keith Olbermann when he was in MSNBC, right?
Yes.
Then Keith went to sports. And I remember he called me from Kenya. He's like, Keith moved to sports? It's like, why would he do that?
Now here, real quick, before you know, like that story, because I'm a big Keith Olbermann fan. Before he went to MSNBC,
he was in sports.
He was in sports.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. And because I remember, I was like, when it's a bad thing reporting on sports, like, no. He had a big spot on MSNBC or whatever happened. Yeah, siasa is a thing. But yeah, they don't take it seriously, and I think that's a reflection of how we view sports. I mean, how many people, instead of going to PE, a teacher will be like, actually, no, you're not doing PE today. We are revising math.
Double math.
Double math. I'm a physics. I'm a whatever. And it's after. And you're like, I just need to go expend this energy, right? That's one. Two, our own parents. Me, I know very well, I was not encouraged to play sports. You know, that was not a thing that was, you know, even if it's team building, I'm creating discipline for a kid. No, I was not encouraged. Like in the debates, you know, the things that would get me out in front of people to articulate myself. Well, those ones I was encouraged to do. Lakini kucheza.
Yeah, no, sports was never.
Ni kucheza, by the way. We're supposed to be studying.
It supposedly does not get you anywhere. You know,
that's the thing.
It's the medicines, the lawyers, you know.
By
walikuwa nakwambia sports wewe unanga mtu akienda wapi na mchezo.
Unafanya mchezo.
Unafanya mchezo, right? But I think
drama, mchezo wa kuigiza. You sarcastic.
That is true.
Like you look at it, the art and sports in Kenya were always looked down on, right?
Correct.
Unajiona wewe ndo mzee wa juang. Like nobody ever talked to it in a good way. It was always looked down on.
I think you would.
Sorry, Ruth, I was bringing it back to you. Yeah,
it's okay. Sorry, you'd participate in. At least for me, I was in drama, but that's because my grades were good. You know, it wasn't.
Oh, so by virtue of your grades being good, then it was okay to let you slide with drama.
Yes.
Got it.
Right, and also it was preparing me to be a public speaker. You know, all of these things. Like, so these are the benefit
model
of
UN.
yeah,
type.
those
Okay.
things, right? But I do think if we start having sports as a profession and our parents get to see that it is possible,
Yeah.
then from home we can get the encouragement, or kids can get the encouragement that, you know, you could pursue sports, right?
Yeah.
But also I think we also have to be gracious to people in Kenya, because I mean more than 70% of that country is basically just trying to thrive, to survive, not even thrive.
Yeah.
You know, and to them they're seeing what is the best way out of this poverty. Now, don't get me wrong, even the people who run, they're running from poverty. This is why I think literally they win this many medals. There's a reason why. Like, if I win that, I'm gonna get money for my family, right, or for my community. We need to be a little bit gracious, not on the leaders, they should know better, but on from where people do come from. People are just basically trying to survive.
100%. And another thing, Ruth, is that I think another way, you know, like, because I like giving grace to our parents. You know, most of our parents did not encourage us to do any of this. I can't blame them. I think part of the reason why they did not is because they were seeing all these other people who tried to do this thing, and they see them languishing in poverty.
Yeah.
So I think if there's a way in which parents are shown that there's a proper structure, you know, like if your kid is talented, we can do this, and that, and they're going to start
Grassroots.
earning, even if they don't make it to the Olympics, even if they don't make it to the World Cup, but they'll still be earning opportunities locally. I think that's very important. Another thing that we also need to sensitize our parents on is the fact that even these people who are going to study law, these traditional, you know, like careers that are loved, a lot of them are jobless.
Oh yeah, because there
Yeah.
are too many of them.
A lot of them are jobless. So we should also sensitize parents and tell them, look, even these other careers that you're pushing, a lot of people who are leaving university as graduates
Yeah.
are also struggling to find jobs.
Yeah.
So don't stop your child because you feel like they're not going to be successful. They will still, there is a chance still that they won't be successful if they're doing this other thing. And I think an important thing is also integrating this in a proper way within our education system, our academic system, where we can absorb, you know, like those who maybe don't make it to go to the big leagues or to go to the Olympics. They can be absorbed within universities, even high schools, you know, like
Yeah.
people who are talented. We know there's some high schools which were already doing this informally, especially from Mombasa. You know, the high schools like Mombasa High, Serani, Hamisi. I don't know how much they're still doing it, but they used to actively recruit people who are good in soccer,
St.
people who are
Patrick's
good
Iten.
in basketball, and also the St. Patrick's Itens. You know, so there are schools that already do this, you know, like kind of informally, you know, like pick talent and come and rest with them. But now we need to figure out a way of having this formally integrated, you know, knowing that your child can still get an education and thrive in whatever sport they're playing, such that if they become good enough, they can go and start having income earning opportunities. Now, this topic is so deep, we haven't even gotten to the manifestos.
We've not even crossed the river.
Eh?
Because boss, there's so much, and I
There's
think
so
at
much.
this juncture, it's a matter of what can be done.
Yeah.
We already know what the Madhogadanyo is. You know, people missing flights, people not being booked, people sleeping outside or whatever. You know, the most glaring was
Borrowing kit.
was Brazil. You know,
Rio.
Yeah.
You know, the most glaring. You know, Malkia All Stars. You know, like Ruth said. You know, guys who are champions, guys who are doing
They're on top
things
of the
on
game.
top of the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And Malkia right now is wants money. Again, they can't make it to go to Brazil, and there's another place they're supposed to be going to prep themselves.
And those are the things that
They've asked for money.
we need. That
The rugby team was asking
Yeah,
for
they've asked
personal
the president.
donations.
They
yeah.
need money.
Yeah. And then Yakobo Simba here says, will the new education system promote or encourage careers in sports? I'm still, trying to learn this new CBC
People
system.
are against it.
Now, but
Lots.
against the
system.
CBC, or
Yeah, CBC.
I'm still trying to learn it because it's something that's
I
already
don't-
being
I
implemented.
don't get it.
What
I
grade
think I'm with
six?
Ali.
So-
I'm
so
two steps
maybe-
behind Ali.
Yeah, so maybe let's say we don't clearly understand it, you know. But here is one thing that I'm worried about. Because they talked about, they mentioned that in this system they will be identifying talents early. So if they see you have a talent in arts, you will be pushed to take certain classes, encourage you to do the arts. If they see you talented in this, my worry about that is when you tell a 12-year-old child, or maybe even a 9-year-old child, or that you are talented in the arts, so achana na sciences. What's gonna happen?
That's bullshit.
Is that the poor kids are the ones who are gonna be pushed to the arts. Because let me tell you something, there are people who discover they love sciences after high school. There are people who discovered they love, like medicine after, or there are people who discovered who are all into sciences, they discovered they love music, like after they turn 20. So this thing of trying to box kids at a very early age, I'm a bit worried about it because it's gonna leave, certain kids are the ones who are gonna be pushed towards there. Onyi metoka ghetto, nyi fanyeni hii, and then the other kids whose parents can stand up and speak for them are the ones who are gonna end up taking up the other.
Actually, before I know you want to say something, but let me get this off, because I was talking to in a certain chat group, and I think this conversation came up, and we were talking about how athletes are changing citizenship because of the lack of whatever
Support.
it is, support and everything.
Yeah.
And what comes to mind is a guy who he mentioned, a guy called Chris Froome, if you remember. Kenyan by birth, Jama tried to represent Kenya.
Chris Froome, you're talking about
The bike guy.
He's not just a bike guy. He's a Tour de France
champion.
Yes.
Imagine that. Yeah, the guy who mentioned that is a pal of mine called James.
So the listeners don't know.
So Chris
to tell them
Froome.
about it.
So Chris
Yeah.
Froome was, Chris Froome, Tour de France champion, won Kenyan by birth, right? But he even trying to go and compete in a competition, he was not even being supported at a bike, even facilitating a bike, what a transport bike team, onge. But this guy was so proud that he was even saying, even an organization of sponsors and whatever, let me just put the Kenyan flag over there, just the Kenyan flag. So he put a small thing, but that is the desire to want to represent. However, the persons you want to represent
are unrepresentable.
like a nonsense. And the leg are there.
So,
So go ahead, Ruth.
yeah, I have two different thoughts I want to say. So in the CBC, I really do want to believe that this education system will still maintain that kids have to have knowledge is not even the word I want to use, but by the time they graduate high school, they need to be proficient in not only English, math, and the languages, but sciences. You cannot just graduate because you're into arts, then you miss out on.
Yes.
I really do hope that they don't do that, because then that would be a failure for their country, So just I'm just putting that one out there.
Yeah.
The other thing about athletes taking other citizenships, during the Olympics, I think the ones in China, we had this Kenyan swimmers who are literally competing with Michael Phelps. I really do think it's China or before China.
You're talking about Kenyan swimmers?
Yes.
Jason Danford?
Yes,
Yeah.
those two brothers.
Yeah, those
right?
brothers, yeah.
So sometimes I wonder, because we like, it's interesting when you realize that we have Kenyans in almost
Every sport.
every sport, right?
Including
Sport.
cricket.
Yeah.
and
And kabaddi,
tennis,
for those who know it.
and
Even
tennis,
skiing.
even
That-
skiing,
yeah.
even
The
skiing, right?
country nini.
Yeah, although the skiing part, really good to you, because I don't know exactly where you're going to ski in Kenya, but like to learn how to ski in Kenya, right? But I'm glad she's going to the Alps to learn wherever.
Yeah.
So we keep talking about the government, but government's resources are literally limited. I wonder whether if they can create a robust system or environment where we can have, like, like the NFL and the MLS and all of these
In other
things
words,
that do.
privatize.
Yeah, privatize
independent
it.
sports
Yeah,
federations.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
The thing they
That's
need
the
to,
one.
lakini kuna FIFA, man. Then FIFA reminds me Kenya is not ready for that. But FIFA Kenya. But like that's what I privatize this. Then you have, say, soccer, or just running, or whatever sport it is. Private enterprises investing in it, and the government either having a small portion of ownership in it or zero.
Now, not to cut you short, Truth, but there's quite a number of issues that actually about what you're talking that were mentioned in the manifesto. Now, back here in the US, when you think of the NFL and the NBA and the NHL and all these major sports like MLS, there's a lot of government support, like to be able to create those independent federations.
Tax
From a tax perspective, from a regulation perspective. MLS was not making money for so many years, but it was allowed to continue doing business because they figured out at some point people will get it and money will start being made. Like you have women's sports, you have the Title IXs and so many other things.
Yes.
So it's really, really hard. One of the questions I wanted us to address is if we are blaming the government too much, and maybe if there's non-governmental actors that are also not doing what they're supposed to do.
I always want to see if...
Yeah, let Ruth answer, and then we're going to come to you, Micah. Ruth.
I always want to see if we have ideas for having our own solutions without always running to the government. Because I think everything we talk about in Kenya, government, right? I know, right? There's just so much they can do, right? Like we need to know the governments don't have unlimited resources, I'm not disagreeing that there's a lot of looting and wastage, but they cannot jump into everything. How, and when you say about them creating environments like the tax rebates or tax or whatever it is, like, can they do that without corruption?
Yes, and real quick before we go back to Micah, for those who have cable, check your cable bill. There's some money you pay that goes towards local broadcasting of sports. I think governments here realize, for example, like local sports, they realize that there will not be people who will pay for this. So make the people, so whether you watch sports or not, just check the details of your cable bill. Yeah, so even the cord cutters, guess what? Regulations are catching up to you. YouTube, YouTube TV, very soon, you're going to start seeing those charges that usually you see on cable bills, especially if you want to watch live sports, like the NFL. Because remember, like your local NFL, NBA, NHL team, there's always a local channel that's showing it live. Guess who's paying for that?
We're paying for
You're paying for it.
But
so those are some of the creative solutions that are brought up. And Micah wanted to say something. Micah.
Then I'll chime in after Micah.
Yeah, so there's one thing that I wanted to bring up. Like, you see, everything that Ruth has said, we should do this and do this and do that, we have all that. Every federation is a private entity, right? It's not run by the government. They go to seek assistance from the government at the end. Now, this is why I'm coming in right now. As Aliyah said, we have to come up with things that we need. Are we giving them like tax rebates? Are we giving tax exemptions to companies that invest in sport? Are we providing a thriving environment for housing? Let's not even just blame the government for everything. Sometimes the government does get in and actually help where it's not supposed to help. Something like FIFA, like KFF, it has been run to the ground. It's been run so bad to a point where sometimes the government says, F it, enough is enough. They come in, we get banned by FIFA. They force KFF to clean up house, and then they pull back, and then let them again be accepted by FIFA, and KFF starts running away. It's at time, actually so many times government has bailed out the local federation. What we need to do is we have a certain bad behavior of benefiting from everything we do. People come to KFF and use it as a stepping stone to jump into politics. So they don't come there with good intention. They come there with other intention. Look at every KFF president. They've run for political office. All of them. They've run for political office after getting done with KFF. They built a name for themselves, and from there they ran for political office. So people join. They don't come in for that aspect of they want to develop the sport. So there should be some rules whereby they ban you from if you run for as a in the federation, you cannot take a political office. They should put it to a point whereby even if they allow the privatization of these companies, they limit how they put in. They still the overall decider, and they enact laws on how to allow these privatized organizations to run themselves. Things like the MLS, the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, all these are private entities which run under federation, which run under the government in their respective countries. Because it's still that law of power. You guys are independent, but we have a whip we can crack over you. When COVID came and the Premier League needed help, what did the government do? Fixed a few laws, allow them to go into furlough, reduce the expenses that they need to go through when they're playing games, giving them resources to allow them to be able to test and play, and to allow the league to test and let the league continue. Like, work with the leagues to allow the continuation of sports to be there. Let them get this contract. Investment contracts, how do you push them? How do you send them? What percentage are you paying them? How much are you forcing has to go into a certain channel? How much is going into redevelopment? Before somebody invests into you, they know in this country, I'm supposed to do A, B, C, D, F, G, H. So if I'm bringing 100 million, I know that in this 100 million, I'm buying for advertising with this money, and this money is going into this certain area. Those are the things that we need to put right now. But we should not just blame the government for everything. Let's also look at the local federations and how they run. And in Kenya, it's a very bad thing when it comes to sport. So I think anybody who comes in politically has to find a way on what you're enacting as a law, what you're saying you're going to do, how is it going to channel down from top to bottom. Back to you.
Uno.
Go ahead. So I'm in agreement with Ruth and even Micah on this one, because we cannot always look at the government, especially when it comes to like KFF, KRU, whatever. That one needs to be studied on its own, because that right there, it's not even a quagmire.
Yeah.
And it's not even Madawadanyo. Nipo. Right? When it comes to the government, I'm thinking about things like, now, for example, you have Olympics, championships, like when you're going to represent a country, guys have been selected, Munenda, Malkia, All Stars. You know, you're going for rugby, you're going for sevens or 15s or whatever. You know, you're not going as KRU, you're going to represent the country.
Yes.
Right? So I think something different needs to be done. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm sure.
Uno, let me interrupt you, Kidogo. You see, the thing is this. When, like you see in countries like these states in Britain and all these countries, they have their federations, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have their Olympic committees.
Mm-hmm.
They know the Olympic committee has been given a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell the Olympic committee, this certain amount of money, this is what you're going to use this year for all these championships, everything you're going to do, all like representation of the countries and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They encourage other sponsors to come in and bring in the money. These guys rarely go back to the government with a begging bowl that we have exceeded our budget, right? In Kenya, it's the same thing. The government has a budget and gives to the federation. They over-exceed that budget and then go back to run to the federation. So what needs to happen right now? If rugby is going to play, KRFU is supposed to be responsible for everything that is needed for that team. Everything.
Yeah, now
they have the allocation that comes from the Ministry of Sports that comes to them. You're in constant go. They're not supposed to come back and tell the government, pay for this bill, pay for this bill, pay for this bill. It's supposed to make a system whereby federations are independently, they can depend on themselves, they can finance themselves, they can work on themselves. All they need the government is to come as a regulator. You see, like the way in the UK, when Abramovich was sanctioned, right, and his assets were frozen. What the FA did, what the Premier League did, was the Premier League told the FA, Chelsea cannot disappear as a club. It needs to be protected. The FA told the government wrote rules to protect Chelsea until it was sold. So that's what you said, the government took ownership of Chelsea to protect it until when the money, they figured out a vehicle on how that money is going to be. When that money is sold, where that money is going, it's not going to Russia, it's going, well, how that money is going to certain charities and how it will go to. That's when they released it. And they did, so they protected the club from disappearing. That's where the government comes in.
Now,
When you
briefly,
have laws that you know is going to affect how the running of sports is going to happen, the government comes in. But still, you could see it was the FA which took the matter first, couldn't handle it, gave it to the Premier. The Premier League took it first. They gave it to the FA, then the FA gave it to the government. That is how it's supposed to be.
And I was going to say,
now briefly, just to piggyback.
Everything is self-dependent, but the government is the overseer and comes in at the last minute to bail you out.
Okay,
Not
Mika.
kila siku serikali's idea.
Okay, Mika. Now, briefly, just to piggyback on what Mika has said, which is very important in as far as looking at other entities just beyond the government. But another thing that's very important, we have to look at all the actors who are responsible, first of all, for these sporting federations not being able to market their teams and the federation itself to sponsors. We need to have a situation where sponsors come running, not where you go begging, because that's what we have in Kenya. Now, for sponsors to come running is that there has to be a marketing machine behind these players
right,
from when they are very, very young, and that's where I think in Kenya there needs to be, like other professions within sports organized to market, organized to do other things that make us know who LeBron James is, even
Right.
before he touches a ball in the league.
Agreed.
Remember Zion Williamson, like he was already in magazines, like even before he joined Duke.
and that is the NBA.
Yeah, so we are talking, Kenya is a sporting powerhouse. I know people will say, why are you comparing America? Kenya is a sporting powerhouse.
Right.
We are talking about different kinds of sports, not just athletics. So if we can have a proper marketing machine, because what do corporates respond to? What's their stimuli? It's money.
Money.
If they see money, they'll come rushing in like fools.
Eyeballs.
Eyeballs. They'll
Yeah.
come rushing in like fools.
Maido.
So there has to be that marketing machine. Part of it is media. And here's a secret, that I have for anyone who wants to invest in media right now. The person who will come with a proper specialized media on sports, just specifically focused on sports. We're talking ESPN style, Fox Sports style. You will make some big money. And why am I saying this? Remember before Citizen embarked on doing vernacular, like going hard on vernacular, radio, everybody thought that this was not profitable. Why should we do this? But once, Citizen focused on it, people realized that, kumbe, there's money in this. So that's the same thing with sports. So if there's anyone who wants to get into sports media, if you're going to be the first, I'm telling you, you're going to eat so many people's lunch, utashiba, you won't even be eating dinner. Uno.
I was going to say this.
Just a quick mention of that sports media that most people usually don't understand or assume is that, have you noticed that sports journalists in America actually have the highest paid salary?
Yeah, Akina Stephen A. Smith.
Yes, and this guy,
these two guys,
Shannon Sharp,
Shannon Sharp,
the other Jama who doesn't like LeBron,
Skip Bayless.
So
they're very highly paid.
I was gonna say this.
Bailey,
Shannon Sharp, those guys.
Sorry, continue.
No, I was gonna say.
Continue.
I was gonna say this. I'm in agreement with Mika. What my point was, what I was going to say is, if you guys remember, there's a time Congress was actually going to have the NFL come, and actually they did come because of regulation, because of what's going on over here. Like, you guys, you're supposed to be doing this, that, the other, ABCD, whatever. But you start seeing that even the NFL wanaanza kutii, because if Congress they've let you guys, you guys can handle this, but you have to function within this box, within this window, whatever, within these parameters. But if you guys are not clearly handling whatever this man knows. Ebu, come we talk.
And
Right.
that's the
NFL,
oversight.
the government oversight. That is one. Two, I was gonna say, you don't even have to go even ESPN. If people understand how the NFL was birthed, that is Micah.
Is that how it was birthed?
There, that is Micah.
Where? Okay.
I don't know what he did.
He was bathing. he was bathing.
Amamika is bathing there.
He's bathing.
busy
He
bathing.
was-
Hey.
It's maybe bait.
Hey.
But,
all right.
but it was very simple. If you remember the NFL films, like Akina with those guys, the Frozen Tundra. Like guys used to go record, and then they would capture the video games or the footage, and then they would make small clips of each team. So these guys were a powerhouse. Like you said, a guy goes and records the Patriots and the Green Bay Packers playing. He goes over here. People are dispersed. All that information is collected, and then NFL let us archive this footage, and let us see what can come of it, and that's how you have the NFL network. KRU, it's a simple idea. Contract same like Ali has a media house. Whenever there's a game playing, go record those. Have the teams, you can give the teams the career, broadcast, and even broadcast the game. Have people, if Cabras is playing or whatever, peleka watu huko, record, have live, and record and store. That way, you get not only footage, but even now guys start wanting to be part of. We have talked about this so many times. Gor Mahia jerseys tunanunanga wapi? China.
It's so complicated, Kwanza. Just try to find one.
It's
It's one of the most difficult jerseys to
But
find.
if you want a national jersey or you want a Manchester United jersey, where do you go? You go to manchesterunited.com.
Yes.
You go there, you buy.
Yeah.
Can you go to gormahia.com and buy a jersey? I don't know.
you have to know a chap.
You have to know a
You
chap.
have to know someone who knows someone.
Those are the small things. Those ones.
The low-hanging fruits, yeah.
Akenani.
So I want us to wrap up. Wow, this conversation, went much deeper than I had anticipated. And
Because we are passionate about this.
yes, and I'm glad, we brought these things out. So I'm gonna quickly, just summarize, what the two, because our time is not on our side. I'm gonna quickly summarize what the two manifestos. We have two leading coalitions that are going to be participating in the upcoming general election, presidential election in August. And on their manifestos, they're talking about sports. I was disappointed that sports did not come up during the debates. There's still one more debate to go in the
And they missed
presidential
a lot of
debates.
stuff in those
Yeah.
debates.
So Yvonne Okwara, if you're listening, and I think it's gonna, not James Smart. There's gonna be someone else who's gonna be moderating that debate. I'm forgetting who it is, but I know Yvonne Okwara is one of them. If you're listening,
Yvonne Okwara.
if you're listening, please make sure that you talk about sports. But let's start with the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto on sports, and it's a good thing that that most manifestos, apart from the Tingiza Mti one, has something on sports. Yeah. Apart from Wajakoya's one-page 10 manifesto of farming snakes and growing weed, all the other ones have something on sports.
watakwambia they will construct stadiums with marijuana. Hemp construction. Unakumbuka dem kila debate alikuwa anarudi kila kitu kwa marijuana.
Oh yeah, everything was going back to marijuana. So yeah, let's start with the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto on sports. So and this is just a quick summary. You can go, get the manifestos and see the details of what they have. So the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto on sports, the first thing they want to do is establish a task force to identify sustainable sources of sports funding. This is through lottery, taxes and tax incentives, public-private partnerships, and review of the 2013 Sports Act. I'll be honest, I've not reviewed the 2013 Sports Act. That's something that I want to see, because it seems like there's already, some law,
Some language.
there's some framework,
language,
to
framework,
govern
okay.
this. So they're gonna do, a task force, and it seems Kenya Kwanza likes task forces, because they're also gonna create a task force to investigate state capture. I don't know how that's gonna work, but that's a story for another
Aren't
day.
they the ones
But wasn't that a cell phone or self-own? when describing state capture by
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Navy.
Yes.
So that's
yes.
that was an own goal.
That was an own goal.
A very
Yeah, that was an own goal. But let's focus on sports. So Kenya Kwanza also wants to build a sports economy value chain that includes hosting international sporting events and also building training facilities.
Stadium Kwanza. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm seeing the way these manifestos are getting creative because they saw how the Jubilee manifesto got cooked with all those stadiums that they were promising. So what I'm noticing here is that there's a bit more vague language which people cannot pick up years later and show you that this is what you promised. So here they're just talking about building a sports economy value chain that includes hosting international sporting events and training facilities.
Bland.
So
Sounds like a CV.
well,
Privatize those stadiums.
So yeah, so that's what I mean. I think we're gonna wait for the details, but that's what the manifesto is saying. And then they also want to get into, like Kenya Kwanza also wants to get into the manufacture of sports apparel and equipment. And I came to learn from their manifesto that Kenya is a leading dartboard manufacturer. I did not even know that. I don't know if it's true. I mean, it's in a Kenya Kwanza manifesto.
Shot.
Yeah, Alex Kavisi, you require 45. Yeah.
45.
Yeah, for those who remember KBL Festival of Darts.
My
that was
boy
on
Jemo
TV.
probably was there, pioneer, but it's
Yes.
not
So they want to get into the manufacture of sports apparel and equipment. I know there's already Enda that's manufacturing
By the way,
shoes in
shoes,
Kenya.
shoes,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very hard to get that shoe, like a lot of them are
Yeah,
on
it
back
takes-
order, so
takes a
it's
year.
on high
A
demand.
year or more.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a running shoe.
Yes.
So again, I'd also like more detail on how they plan to do this. And then they also plan to establish and adequately resource a function within tourism promotions to attract international sporting events. I don't know, I don't know. And I think what they want to do is visit Rwanda, for example, Arsenal, and then remember Tanzania was advertising,
Everton?
Mount
Was it
Kilimanjaro
Seattle?
in Seattle for the Seattle
Yes.
Seahawks.
Yeah.
There was that corner that was
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
I was saying it has the Tanzania effect. Even some of the football players, Shaman was talking about it. So Tanzania has also done a good job in using these international sports to market themselves.
Right.
Uno.
No, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. Just finish because I want to comment on
Yeah.
on
On the Kenya Kwanza one. So so they also Kenya Kwanza also wants to leverage international brands to develop a domestic sports apparel manufacturing cluster. So Kizungu Mob, but I think what that means is that they want to talk to the Nikes and the Under Armours to have facilities that are manufacturing these sports apparel in Kenya. So I think that's really what.
why not
they
just be
want.
like and manufacture your own
omit
sports
China.
apparel?
So so they want both. They want both. Omosh.
So you're saying omit China?
But China makes them.
Yeah. So
But they would be using they would be using Kenya as their
base.
yeah.
Omit China.
Nini si nini zinaitwaje hizi
Okay.
kina Louis Vuitton na kina nani
Or the
zao,
APZ.
kina
Yeah, they-
Gucci,
yeah.
Okay.
zinatengenezwa Kenya na they're not cheaper in Kenya.
So that's why we would like the details. Another thing that also Kenya Kwanza wants to do is expand the national. Oh my goodness, the national youth.
Lenana, there goes.
Kizungu. I mean, oh yeah. No. Even
I've been waiting. I've been waiting.
I did it deliberately because I know you've been waiting for that moment.
What were changes?
I know you all have been waiting for that moment, so I wanted to give it to you.
National.
That was deliberate.
So national.
Yeah, but anyway, expand the National Youth Talent Academy to include all sports and evolve it to counties. So apparently there's a National
So
Youth
there's
Talent
actually a
Academy.
youth.
That I was reading that on this manifesto. I'd like to know more about it. And this is the Kenya Kwanza manifesto for those who've not read it. And they said they want to build capacity to identify promising sporting talent and provide necessary support to further their skills with this National
youth.
Youth Talent Academy that's going to be devolved across the 47 counties.
NYTA.
So, yeah, NYTA. So that's something that I think we need to
You
do
are
a
the
bit more
last
reading
party
about.
in the
And then they also want to promote county leagues and inter-county sports championships. There was not details on how they want to do that. I think this would be good if there's a lot of inter-county sports going on, intra and inter, and then establish a sporting heroes benevolent fund. and that's the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. I think, Uno, you wanted to...
I get, right there, there's no solution that has been offered, because it's just, here's the thing. Players are having problems. Players are retiring. You remember when Hayange could not even go for surgery, people had to contribute.
Yes.
Those are the simple things that we're talking about. Those are the simple things. People traveling, you already have a team going to like Malkia Stars, cannot get transport. 15s, watu walikuwa nachanga online.
GoFundMe.
So what are the solutions to that? Forget these things, because those things, either task force, commission of inquiries,
Capacity building.
Bullshit. Let us get proper, like, okay, this is what we need to do. This is where the fault is. This is where the problem is. To solve this is what we are going to do. We don't care about people traveling or whatever, but first you have to fix the broken system so that when people come in, people will gladly come in, if it's tourism, to want to come and play in our stadia.
Okay. 1 minute each, Ruth and then Omosh, about this Kenya Kwanza manifesto and what they want to do.
It's very shallow.
Ruth,
Sorry.
and I think Micah's call was dropped. He's trying to get back in.
He's back.
Okay. All right.
Again, from where I stand, and it's good to be honest. I don't want to say like, oh, I'm just gonna be looking to what they will do. I think that it comes down to that, and probably I do need to read the manifesto. Glad that this is the most I've heard about a Kenyan government talking about sports through this manifesto. I think for me it's more like I want to see whether I want to feel the effect of them doing something.
Okay,
then I will know they actually are serious about it, because I can read and be aware of it, but then I'll just be more frustrated about them not doing anything about what they say.
Okay. OmoshFaya, 1 minute on the KK manifesto. We're running out of time.
It sounds good. We need to see what it actually pans out to be. Is it gonna be like the laptops?
Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. So I wanna get onto the Azimio manifesto as we're wrapping up.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So now I want to get onto the Azimio manifesto as we're wrapping up. The one thing I'll say about the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, like they're very good at developing language of things that people wanna hear. Now the question is, are they really gonna implement this? And this is very creative language that will not. I think they've learned from the Jubilee manifesto that ended up being memes. Like throughout the Jubilee, like administration.
Right.
Can I say something to that though?
Sure.
Because I just being objective about that.
Yes.
I think both whoever is writing about their manifestos on this, they're gonna be creative, because this is their wishful.
Yeah.
This is their wishful
it's
thinking.
an aspirational document.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So like, for me, I approach it from both of whatever they've written. It's like, okay, this is what you hope to achieve.
Yeah. But so it's aspirational, they hope to achieve, but they're also careful with the Jubilee one, because the Jubilee one was very ambitious, but it ended up being memes. So I think this time they've been more creative to avoid, like if they know they're not going to meet this promise, to be mimified. I think Micah also real quick. Micah, 1 minute, Kenya Kwanza manifesto, then we're going to wrap up with the Azimio manifesto on sports. Micah. Unmute Micah. I think you need to pick up his hand.
He's good.
Okay. All right. Micah.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. There he goes.
Okay. Micah, can you hear us now?
Micah.
I can hear you. Niyo jamaa kwa amebonyeza kidude.
Okay, sawa. Sasa amebonyeza. So 1 minute, 1 minute on this Kenya Kwanza manifesto, and people who are listening, watching, drop your comments on what you think about this manifesto and what it says about sports. Micah.
Honestly, I read this manifesto and I was like, how does it even help any sports person in this country? Yes, you're getting a manufacturer for sports in apparel. That's tax for the government. They will manufacture, take the apparel and sell them for the same amount. Doesn't make any sense. Like, establish adequate resources function with tourism promotions to attract international sporting events. How? We can attract international sporting events if we have good facilities and we have good infrastructure to host those events, right? Expand the national youth and academic freedom sports devolve into counties. Okay, fine. How? Explain more. These are easy things to write and read on paper.
Yeah.
But the implementations of it, there is no way in it. I feel this is just a smart way of somebody trying to say that they cared about sport. They knew they were going to get asked questions about sport, but in reality, not a lot will help. Will change with what they're going to put here.
Okay, asante sana Micah. So I want to quickly go through the Azimio Manifesto. The Azimio Manifesto had a bit more detail, like some of the things there were some aspects where both manifestos were coinciding with each other. They were saying the same thing in different ways, but there was also some fundamental differences. So on the Azimio Manifesto on sports, the first thing they want to do is reorganize sports funding towards having a measurable impact on people's lives. So that's something that I would also need more meat on what exactly that means. But I usually like, like outcome related ambitions whereby you're looking to either improve or so, but I'd need more detail on that. And Azimio also wants to work with non-Olympic sport bodies to prioritize their long-term success. Remember that rugby is a very recent Olympic sport. Before that, it wasn't there in the Olympics. And I think a lot of non-Olympic sports were never getting the love,
the limelight,
or the attention that they needed, because there was no platform to see them on a global stage. And I think Kenya participates in quite a number of non-Olympic sports.
Right.
Yeah, with rugby being a prime example, it got to the Olympics very recently. Another sport, which is a Richmond sport, I don't know whether it got to the Olympics at some point, golf. I don't know that golf was brought to the Olympics, but there's a number of sports that Kenyans play that are not in the Olympics. So I think that was an interesting mention. Cricket is not in the Olympics. Cricket is definitely not in the Olympics. So that's another sport that doesn't, because Olympic sports also get like some funding from the International Olympic Committee. And then the Azimio Manifesto also talks about improving sports management and coaching standards. That's also wide open. Like it could mean so many things. They also want to integrate sports training and talent development at all levels of education through county sports talent development centers across the 47 counties. So this one I find interesting.
That one is, I think,
this one I find interesting because it mentions the schools, because the school is where you're gonna capture all Kenyan kids.
You're going to harvest.
Yes, I think maybe there's some few Kenyan kids, but in this day and age, I think all parents, even the poor ones, want to take their kids to school. So that's a place where you can capture, like a cross section of the country.
You remember we had a discussion about you remember these games that we used to have, before even you get to district, you have zonals,
Yes.
but like Mashinani. So how if you're gonna
The regionals.
even before that, like it used to be whatever. And then sports day. So even like Embu, where I was in Shulai, you compete with those guys, and then from there once
you come out of that area,
out of there you go to
move,
the next one, then you go to the next one, then you go to district, then provisionals, then
Mnenda Nashos. Yeah.
That way.
Yeah.
That way.
So I think, like when you're doing this, because these sporting structures also targeted certain schools. It's not all schools that choose to participate.
No, it's not, yes.
I think all schools should be given an opportunity from a very low level, and that can be a forum for this, whatever they call the talent development academies, to start picking talent very early. You heard, like someone spotted Neymar when he was, 5 or 6 years old. That's the kind of thing that we want to do, so that we can start developing.
Or like
these
the lady
talent
from the lady from the one who switched allegiances and became an Israeli.
Yeah, she was running in a park,
spotted,
and she was already a grown up.
So if in Wargadud and you guys have got a very good sports competition, healthy among schools or whatever,
yes,
you're gonna get the best runners.
Yeah, from Wargadud or Bulabesa.
Yes.
And if you know Bulabesa, and you know your Kenyan.
I know Bulabesa.
I don't think you know it, but
Bulabesa,
that's also that's another part of Kenya.
It says it's Besha, Bulabesha, Nebesha. Carry on.
All right. The other thing that manifesto, the Azimio Manifesto wants to do is reclaim illegally acquired sports and recreation facilities. And we know this, like one of the things that made, like boxing, for example, big in the 80s.
Social hall.
Yeah, the social halls. All those things were taken away. Places like this area that was called Dallas near Tawi, Nairobi, palikuwa panaitwaje ni Mudhurwa. Yes. Landi Mudhurwa.
Yes.
Those
Landi
places,
Mawe, Mudhurwa,
Landi Mawe, Landi
had a
Mudhurwa.
lot, had a lot of,
Yes, Mudhurwa and Dallas.
Had a lot of
Kaloleni.
yes.
It had
Ololo,
social halls. All these,
Ofafa.
like big time boxers are the only African, or rather the first African to win a gold medal in Olympics boxing,
Napuni.
Robert Wangila Napuni,
yep.
is a product of a social hall.
Yes.
And you know what would be a good thing?
Yeah.
A report being done to show where these boxing halls were, these social halls
Sporting
were,
facilities, yeah.
and who, what is there in their place, and how they got to
Yes.
that
Yes.
way you
And
expose this
They
mother
should have
suckers.
added a line there and say, so they're saying reclaim, meaning reclaim for use, or just reclaim it?
Reclaim, and I think this is part of the open language that's being
Open
used in this
language.
manifesto. so next time when unakuja na complain, watasema, we said reclaim, but that's where we stopped. So
Yeah, whether you use it or not. Is it back to the same thing with us and voting?
But,
Okay.
but here's where
Carry
the
on.
detail, like, and like again, like manifestos are aspirational. They also want to improve, rather nurturing, and they want to improve the nurturing and welfare of youth and retirees from the sports and creative industry. That's too broad for me, so I don't even want us to discuss about that. That's a bit too broad. They want to invest in sports participation by women, girls, and people with disabilities. I think this is one area where they have clearly distinguished themselves from the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. This is not something that's talked about in Kenyan Sports, and I think we have a template to learn in the US with Title IX,
Title IX,
and
yeah.
what it did to women's sports in America. So we would like also to get the details
The
on
Lionesses.
how they plan to build this.
The Lionesses,
Malkia.
Malkia All Stars,
Mhm.
right? Those are the two that come to mind, and the Starlets.
Yes.
Those are the three that come to
And
mind.
they have people with disabilities.
Yeah, and now
here,
disabilities,
which is-
because now
which
you have
basically
Special Olympics. Special Olympics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because most women who are in sports, I'll get to you, Micah. Most women who are in sports tend to quit, after high school. High school for most of them tends to be where even the ones who are very talented. Micah, real quick before I complete this.
No, I was saying, Mr. Omademo Hockey is actually one of the few leagues that have a very established league.
Oh, that's
One of the few sports.
yes, that's very true. Hockey.
Yeah.
Yes, and then Azimio also wants to establish a sports business council to develop a business strategy to improve access to finance and skill development. So a lot of kizungu mingi there.
Yeah, too much.
I'd like to know a bit more detail on that. Then another part that distinguishes itself from the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto is the one to introduce a sports cabinet secretary who will bring together sports ministers from all 47 counties to share the best
So there will be
practices.
sports. So there will be a sports rep from
Yeah.
each county
No,
or minister.
So right now, I think counties already have, like a minister or what's called a county executive who's in charge of sports.
Sports,
I don't know whether they have one that's exclusively sports, but they have a cabinet, like a county
Yeah.
executive who's in charge of sports. Now, what they're saying here is that they want to create a ministry
Yes.
of sports. They want to have a cabinet secretary for sports, because you see, like right now, Amina Mohammed, her ministry
But she
deals
is
with
sports.
Ministry of Sports and Culture. And
So
I
are
don't
they
know.
gonna separate culture
I
from
don't
it?
know. I don't know why culture is always mixed up, because sports is always thrown into something else. Kind of like what they do to gender, like it's
And I think
always
that-
thrown into something
And that
else.
is why I think it dilutes it, because
Yeah.
it's the same thing like we're talking about here, how sport is looked as not even a low, not even a third tier, and they come either do by the way,
Yeah.
and then from there you're plucked and then you whatever. Like when Keith Obama, when you're talking about how when you're talking about how your friend
Yeah.
was surprised that KO
Obama.
went to sports and
Sports.
Yeah.
nini.
Yeah.
So I think the dilution sports needs to be on its own. Let it stand on its own.
Yeah.
Because seriously, we are very good in this thing.
So that's the other thing that Azimio wants to do is introduce new grant conditions and guidance for institutions which place emphasis on sports. I think we're talking about like colleges, and for those who remember, there was a time like when a lot of even companies, some companies, like Tusker FC is an example of a team that is a product of a company. You had Rivertex.
Yep.
Rivertex was a company, so there was a lot of companies.
Bakile, Bako,
yeah,
Kenya Railways,
yes,
Nini,
government agencies,
yeah,
government
Posta.
agencies,
Yeah.
Posta,
Yeah, Posta
yeah.
is huge.
Bakile, they're playing Bakile.
MOW, Ministry of Works.
the police, the
Yeah.
police is very famous
That
for
one,
producing a lot of
yes,
athletes. So I
especially,
think,
yeah.
so I think, you know, like what do you call it, like trying kuzimarisha, you know, and making them, you know, like more established. And when you talk about institution, let's also talk about educational institutions, not just the universities,
Right.
but I'm talking about even the TVETs, you know, like the technical colleges
Yeah.
and other schools that are not necessarily even public, even private ones. I know the private schools like Strathmore Catholic University, they have some sports element in them. So I think this is another very good system to try to just keep pushing up that talent slowly by slowly to get to the top of it. And then they also, Azimio also wants to strengthen domestic leagues to enhance performance in international competitions. We've seen this is something very difficult for a government to do. So I don't know exactly how they plan to do this.
KFF, KRU, those guys have everything, but they have slept.
Yeah, but even the Basketball Federation and a
And
lot of other
yeah.
federations.
Very
are
many
also
of them
suffering.
were melala.
Yeah.
Were than your blood.
Yeah,
Nonsense.
and then they talk about another part that distinguishes itself from the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto is they want to strengthen the link between clubs and fans by empowering the fans. I don't know how they plan to do that, but I think
Aren't the fans already empowered? Or
no,
am I wrong?
the fans. To be honest, the fans are no longer empowered. You know, like people are not going to the stadiums the way they used to. You know, like these games do not attract the crowds.
So
they used
is
to
that what
attract
you're calling
at the
Unless-
point.
empowerment
unless
or
you're
attendance?
Gor or
You know,
AFC Leopards.
Empowerment
So
is-
attendance is part of empowerment. I
Empowerment
believe.
to me would be that now when there's like elections for team officials or whatever or things like that, the fans are actually participating in it and it's not like a clique.
Yes, so
get
there
what
has
I'm
to be
saying?
like membership. Like if
Correct,
you're
yes.
like, let's say if they introduce maybe paid membership or some sort of membership whereby you have a stake. And a good example here in the US is the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay
Yes.
Packers is owned by the fans. So the fans have a say on, you know, like whether a coach is getting fired. They have a say on certain things that a lot of other NFL teams don't have. So I think this might be beneficial. And then there's this former Kenyan soccer player who I think was either born in the UK or the US, retired. He's called Taiwo Atieno. He was recommending that a lot of these teams that are based in Nairobi to go to Mashinani, where they can actually, to go to not necessarily Mashinani, to go to Shags, where they can start building a base, you know, from the people
Agreed.
who actually live there, because there's too many teams
We've
in
talked
Nairobi.
about this where
No,
have a local
that is-
stadium huko mashinani.
Yeah, Mika.
No, I was just gonna say that is easy to talk about that, right? Because people look at the strength of FC and Gor, but ukiangalia bado FC na Gor a tribal club, but ni za Nairobi, right? Gor si ya Kisumu, FC si ya Kakamega, Mabusia ni za Nairobi, but they're tribal clubs. It's really hard for a club to go outside of Nairobi and sustain itself. It has to make money, and in the Premier League of Kenya right now, 80% of the teams are in Nairobi. 20% are outside of Nairobi. Those outside of Nairobi are institutional teams that are owned by institutionals. That traveling is hell expensive for teams to maintain.
Okay.
To pay salaries, to be traveling every week, it's so expensive. So the thing that they need to do is figure out a way on how to make, even if the teams moved out of Nairobi, how do you make the league profitable for teams to sustain themselves? The fan base is there. The team will have fun. But ushago pia study gani unatengeneza tu study watu wako nalipa kuingia ni hard na utalipisha watu more than 50 bob.
And then in Machakos, by the way, kuna stadium.
Yeah, kuna stadium, you know, I don't know how well it's doing, but yeah, and I think also in neighborhoods like Dandora and Nairobi,
Ilikuwa home ground ya Sofapaka
hiyo ya Macha.
na walikufa. Yeah. na
The stadium is
Sofapaka
still
walikufa.
there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So that's another thing, you know, like to contemplate about. The other thing that Azimio wants to do is build 50 high quality mini multi-sport facilities. I think examples of multi-sport facilities are like Nyao Stadium and Kasarani, you know, and I don't know how sustainable those are, because building is easy, but you know, like getting those buildings to actually benefit people.
And that is why I think Ruth mentioned this, and maybe even Micah. Like when you privatize, you let somebody come in.
Yeah.
Like now, okay, I'm going to draw a comparison. You don't enough, for example, let's say MNT, the Ravens Stadium.
Yeah.
Or even let's look at Dallas, the Cowboys
Mercedes
Stadium.
Benz.
Or even Mercedes Benz or whatever.
Yeah, in Atlanta.
You have
yeah.
you have a local team, the New Orleans Saints, and you guys, I'm the owner.
Yeah.
I want to build this. Can we have a tax break? Can we have a conversation?
There was a time.
Get?
There was a time Coca-Cola wanted to Nyayo Stadium to be renamed, and
They will not
the
let go
government
of the
refused
name.
because they say that name is historical. So alikata, and that's how that deal just
Kuft.
just disappeared.
But
So-
they could have still kept the name and got the sponsorship.
Well, Coca-Cola wanted
there's
the
a-
stadium renamed.
They could have.
They could have added
you
the
could have
name
had
somewhere.
bracket.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could have had
Could have
Coca-Cola
had
Nyayo
somewhere.
Yeah,
bracket.
but Coca-Cola go hardcore on these things, and they're very specific. They don't want any other name like the Emirates. Remember, when Emirates wanted to name a stadium, it's Emirates. You can't put Highbury in brackets. You can't put like any other thing. In
Emirates,
brackets.
and
Yeah.
that is why
It's
the,
fine. What Nyayo,
The
they could
Baltimore
have-
Stadium is
that's
called MMT.
MMT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
FedEx
They could
Field
have-
is FedEx Field.
FedEx Field.
Hakuna story a hyphen
Fine.
brackets.
They can tower the
Yeah.
Nyayo for that period, for that contract. Then you bring it back. What's the problem?
So these are part of the problems that we're experiencing. The other thing Azimio wants to do is create medical and insurance schemes for retired athletes and create pathways for them to support sport development programs at local level. Like a lot of very verbose. This is even a summarized version.
but I agree with that. Some
Yeah.
sort of way of these retired people to be supported, whether it's some sort of retirement scheme or whatever, just
But-
like the athletes
but-
here.
Are
in
they
the different
contributing? Are
minis.
they contributing to that retirement scheme?
They may. They
Okay.
may or they may
I-
not.
I just
Or they
want to
may-
make
or
sure.
they
So
may-
here's
or they-
where we have to
they
interrogate
may
the
or they may
details.
not. But you
It
see,
doesn't-
Sasa now there has to, of course, like you've said, there has to be a way to fund this.
Yeah.
It's not going to come out of
So,
we
we
it's
need
not
millions
manna.
out there
But boss-
and
Yeah.
not contributing to that
Yeah.
fund.
Here's the thing. In one aspect, if you're a Mwamba player,
Correct.
if you're a Nondis or Queens or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it should be the responsibility of those guys to set up schemes such that when you finish playing, or let's say KRU, as the umbrella,
I
without
understand.
even in career, what the government can do is just make sure that okay, you guys manage, okay,
Yeah,
sawa.
they cover in making
They-
sure that those things are,
are
set,
being set
and
and
maybe
done.
they even manage that fund that
But-
comes in.
Not even they fund, but kuna watchdog.
That's true, but somebody has to. You're right. Someone has to oversee it, and
When
that,
I watch,
yeah, and that
so
would be
this,
them. Yeah,
but even
But
the
if
players
you're,
and
playing,
everything.
if you're playing for the country, and I think if you played for the country for X amount of time and you retire or whatever, I don't think it's a problem for us to give you money in retirement.
So-
Because
an
you
agreement.
put yourself out there
Yes.
But
for,
sana-
the
for
country.
the country.
But sana
That's-
sana,
me, I'm
yeah,
just,
but you put
maybe
yourself
I'm-
out for the country,
Yeah.
not as often as when you're playing for.
I get that. That's an
the Premier League or
that's
whatever.
now
So-
at a club level, right? At
so-
a club level, they need to come up with some
Yeah.
schemes
Watch
and
dog
whatever,
ikuje
and they
iangalie
should be
So
told,
you
yeah.
see here, when you have a developed sports federation like the NBA or the NFL, the sports federation is responsible for their retired players,
Absolutely.
and
So
that's the direction
KRU,
which we eventually want to go.
KRU, KFF, all,
yes.
those ones are responsible when,
Yeah.
when Humphrey Hayange retires, akona pension.
Yes.
When Collins Injera retires, akona pension. When all the guys who have played for the rugby, the Cabras, whatever, they are sorted.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Okay, now the two last things they want to do is Azimio wants to do is offer tax rebates for corporates that invest in sports programs and zero rate sports equipment for community development. I think we've already exhausted the issue of corporate supporting sports. And then the last thing is to create a national sports research center and technology center to track performance and market sports talent. Ruth, let's wrap
The
this up.
entire thing.
Yeah.
I think what they can start doing is the last two ones, right? Like, I think, okay, there's some really good points up there, but I think private partnerships is it's what is going to take sports to the next level in Kenya, and having a research center that's the government doesn't have to fund 100%. I mean, I keep saying there has to be private interest in this as well.
Yes.
So I think those two, if they're implemented and they're robust, I think the other things will just like fall into place eventually.
Okay.
So is this research center supposed to cover sports medicine? Is that what
yeah.
we're, is
Now-
that,
now
is that,
that-
what,
that-
is
that
that what
detail-
we're supposed
that-
to take from that?
that detail is not there.
It's not there.
That detail is
Okay.
not there. That detail is not there.
But
yeah, Micah.
what those sports centers are basically, because I've seen a few that were built in Dubai. I think Nike have one in Oregon too. It has everything from sports medicine, sports science, sports data, coaching, improvement facilities. Like the one that Nike has. You find athletes like Kina Rooney, Van Persie, when they're coming from long-term injuries, have gone there for months to train there, like they're recovering and you're training. So that's what it's supposed to have. It has to have from like the one in Florida, Ali, the one that those Kenyan boys came through, and the ones who got picked to this the previous draft of the MLS, like the one they came to. It has everything from education, sports training, sports development, coaching classes, sports style. Like it's a one-stop shop for sport.
All right. Santi Sana Micah. Wow. This officially has been the longest politics segment.
No, you guys
ever
have
had.
lied. I think nyinyi, because super producer yuko hapa munaendelea tu. Nyinyi ni wale watoto amwezi wachoka darasa.
But let me tell you
Bila
something.
monitor.
Let me tell you something. I hope super producer is not listening from wherever he is. But let me tell you something.
Changamwe,
that, that I have come to learn, having, like over the years, informally, like studying journalism and just being in these open talk radio sessions, is I've learned one thing. And this, like traditional journalists may not like. They may not like hearing this. That's why I'm hoping super producer does not listen to. There's two things. One of the reasons why people like Joe Rogan are very popular, in as much as sometimes his content is, is a bit controversial, is because the traditional model of radio, whereby you talk for 5 minutes and then music and then you talk for another 5 minutes, people don't like that. So people either like consuming music for a certain period of time or just listening to talk for a certain period of time.
Correct.
So that's something that I've learned. But in traditional radio, they like taking a commercial break, artistry, Ako Fresh, Nini.
Bills have to be paid.
Bills have to be paid.
Yeah, but I think, like from what I've learned, like from a lot of podcasts and a lot of and even, like shows like the Spice FM show, although it's still traditional in
They
some
do.
sense.
It's 4 hours, but they still do that. But they still it's traditional in some sense. Yes.
So I'm glad we're able to keep people's attention so this long. This was a very, very critical topic.
It was really long.
And the thing is, here's the thing. It's not, we're talking about Akina Omanyala, and we're talking about Akina Hayange, Collins, we're talking about Akina Froome or whatever, and Akina Okutoi. But don't forget, behind them,
There are others.
there's an upcoming generation of sports persons.
Yes. Kina Kayange already gone.
They're done, and Collins or whatever, but right now they are young bucks.
They're looking.
They want to be like Collins, they want to play for the national team or whatever. So what are we going to do to set up an environment or a situation for them that even when they retire, one, kuna ka pension, they won't suffer. Even if they decide to go into this thing full time, they don't have to work. They don't have to be an accountant Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then go for training and then go for games, or have to take time off. Let this be your profession. Again, look at people like NFL, Ray Lewis. When you look at those guys, they're OTAs and what, but them they eat, live, breathe football and to be the best.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and real quick before we wrap up this segment, Pablo is saying I'm trying to justify why I spent a lot of time on the Azimio Manifesto. I tried my best to keep this. I mean, it's clear.
No.
What coalition I support.
No, hold on. Let me answer. Pablo, let me answer for you. It's very simple. Just go and read the manifesto and look at what Azimio put down.
It is long. It's a long list.
No. Pablo, go look at the manifestos. Look at what
to search on sports.
No.
Search sports.
In it, UDA.
Yeah.
Look at what they posted for sports, and then look at what Azimio posted for sports. Here too. Find your homework.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Because on the OneMic show we try to be very deliberate. Like on facts especially. And here it's not that you support Kenya Kwanza or Azimio. The Azimio Manifesto has more detail on sports. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know. But the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto has a bit less detail on the sports. And in defense of Kenya Kwanza has other sections which maybe they're a bit more detailed than the Azimio Manifesto.
But today we're looking at sports. We are focusing on
the
sports.
education section.
Okay, Sawa. But Pablo,
Yeah.
Soma,
Yes.
all I'm saying is, Soma look at the sports part
Yeah.
of Azimio
This
and
is-
UDA.
This is easily verifiable.
No, just go look at that.
In fact,
Yes.
the Azimio one, I had to cut some off, because we would have stayed
Ali.
here the whole night. Mika.
Aliyojua nini?
Mm.
Pablo asitubuli. Azimio wako na kura 4 hapa.
Actually, Pablo just wants music right now.
Okay, all right. Pablo
Yeah.
wants music.
That- that's what he wants.
No. Right now, he's seeing what he wanted to see.
Okay.
Yes.
It's like music time.
Okay.
Ali,
What?
Nothing.
Ali, I want to do this.
Yes.
I want to do this before you chase us away, right?
Yes.
Today we have given people an overload of sports. That one I shall get it on this OneMic show, sports show. Anyway, so I'm going to do a favor to the people. I'm going to give you a longer hit and miss. I will do the sports segment in 2 minutes, and I'm doing it right now. I just want to say
Sound.
that. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right now. So I want to say that Ferdinand on Tuesday evening became the first woman to win medals at 4 consecutive World Championships events when she glided to gold at the Hayward feed, clocking 3 hours. So sorry, 3 minutes 52 and 6 seconds to reclaim the title she last won in 2017. And now, and this is a big deal because remember, everybody was talking about Kellyanne Fraser and how many records she won, how many titles she's won. But Kipyegon basically went back, and if anybody saw the race, she won by a canter. This is such a big deal, especially heading on to the Commonwealth, where right now she's targeting the world record. I believe it's something that we need to mention, and also just want to give a medal count that right now on the current ongoing World Athletics Championship, Kenya currently 6th with a tally of 1 gold, 3 silver, and 2 bronze. That's a total of 6 medals. They follow Peru, who have 2 golds. They follow China, who have 5 medals, but they have 2 golds, 1 silver, and 2 bronze. They follow Jamaica, who have 2 golds, 3 silvers, and 1 bronze. Then Ethiopia, who have 3 golds, 4 silvers, and 1 bronze for a total of 8 medals. And the United States, who have the highest tally, they have 7 gold, 6 silver, and 9 bronze for a total of 22. This shows that despite the shortcomings that we had, especially in the track and field, we're still doing good. We're still maintaining a respectful position, and hopefully we can add to the medal tally. Remember, we still have a few races that we have Kenyans qualified for the championship, and hopefully by the conclusion of the championship by Sunday, we might be able to go on top of that table. And that is all from the OneMic Show Sports.
All right. All right. Asante sana Mika for being so gracious. Like we ate into, like the sports segment tonight. We've eaten into hit or miss. I don't even know whether we're going to have hit or miss. But what I know we're going to have is music. We're going to take a music break. Pablo really wants that music. And with that said, I want to, thank the panelists for this longest ever news and politics hour. When you merge sports and politics, it just tends to be very explosive. I want to thank the panelists for their contribution and all the people who made comments. Keep them coming. But I want you to stay tuned for more coming up. Uno, please remind the viewers what we'll be discussing in tonight's social segment.
Ideally, what we'll be discussing is are Africans predisposed to corruption? But there's a whole bunch of stuff. We'll provide context. When we start discussing after the break, we'll provide context.
Okay, so the discussion again is going to be very explosive. It's going to be a conversation on if Africans and black people at large are predisposed to entertain corruption practices against them by their own leaders. So I want you to start, locking and loading for that conversation. I want you to keep it locked and stay tuned. Please remember, like I said earlier, share our live stream. This is how we'll get so many other people. So if you haven't hit that share button, on Facebook, if you're listening to us on Facebook or on YouTube, please hit that share button to share on your live stream, to share rather on your timeline. And to those streaming on YouTube, this is the point where we say goodbye, but you can come join us on our Facebook live stream because the show goes on. Please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on all our social media handles and keep spreading the word. Mimi ni mtangazaji wenu Ali Badawi aka mjukuu wa Masai, and you still tuned in to the OneMic show.
Ladies and gentlemen, mabibi na mabwana, this is still a non-core presentation of the OneMic show, www.onemicshow.com. 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that the people's Kamkunji is about to be in full effect. DJ Machachari Buraboska there. Twende kazi.
Vicky Bandes.
Kuja juu kama jua asubuhi, nikaona irusa kwa mapua tupumui. Kiuno ndogo flow mebeba sasa juu, sanikeuza chita sana feel kama chui. Piga sirudi ya kupiga situli, basi juti juna rapa nifuti. Mivisi bila njaka jaiva security, ila tima leta kwanza tu nisa. Falling language, afanya mbongeta ya kiswe. When you want pony, girl want Istanbul, unaniweka taki we. Na 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 na, hey party kokana, Hennessy na marijuana, naka girl come mama, bad bad bad. Hija, bear, hija, bear, hija, bear. Girl looky answer when he unstoppable. Harkula tu kwa macho when he untouchable. Katika tenda wili kwa madem parable. Body yako laptop baby girl portable. Unatoa baridi, unaleta joto. Kanyaga chini wasaji wa flow ni moto. Chile ozaka nawe ameshashika moto. Shapata maziwa keti chini nyonya toto. Falling languages, afanya mbongeta ya kiswe. When you want pony, girl want Istanbul, unaniweka taki we. Na 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 na, hey party kokana. Blanda, away. Toto wa Hadija, away. Nilienda date, wacha tu na manzi saiko fiatu. Kadem kalikuwa kanasumbua, nikajua kakadem siku moja kataniua. Nikapata mwingine mali safi, lakini alikuwa na baby daddy. Mtoto wake akaanza kunita daddy, baby daddy. Tulishikana mashati. Nikapata mwingine na mahaga, alikuja kejani kuchapana. Uodem alikuwa na shtua, tukimake love alikuwa na bonda sura. Nimetafuta kila chuo, nimetafuta kila rima, natafuta mdenge. Wewe nimetafuta kila chom, nimetafuta kila rima,
natafuta mdenge Kanairo dating blunder nilienda date risky dem alikuwa nalewa whisky kidogo akaanza kunita baby umenijua 2 hours unaemanzea pendi vako zangu anataka nichore mamurio wangu anataka nichore ongwelo yangu ni aende ili nibaki peke yangu unayakisikia sauti ya madem nyashinde akisema sema I love you sema I love you nasikia madem hapo sema I love you nimetafuta kila choo nimetafuta kila rima natafuta mdenge oh wewe nimetafuta kila choo nimetafuta kila rima natafuta mdenge Kanairo dating blunder mara mwisho mi kwenda date demali ni show I have a lot of guy friends kidogo mahag akiona chali mahaga iwezi mimi nataka penka mimi anapenda rege kama mimi anapenda genge kama mimi simple living kama mimi mimi nataka tu mdenge ule atani ride kasenge sababu nafikiria ni wewe ni DM
cheki fala amekam na mezubana na cheki ati Subaru ya Mambaru imekam nimejaa Subaru ya Mambaru imekam nimejaa Subaru ya Mambaru imekam na kinini kidudu kam na kinini kibugudu kam na kinini ki ali kam na kinini kidudu kam na kinini kibugudu kam na kinini ki na imejaa kibugudu my guy hisi toy ziwa urush na mina jienjoy tuliwa bumbrush HK ya Micah Urukli na Missy Boys sina jongo sina form sina cheddar bila mbesha still machaji walichuna ngeusi una mattress kwako sema form muunga mjinga niko zone boss curfew magiza niko busy shmaditing alikujia magizgiz I'm sorry redeem I'm sorry redeem I'm sorry redeem I'm sorry redeem I'm sorry I Subaru na kam na Mambaru amekrom zaidi ya mzinga na zile vitu wrong munga saboy yepa chom na imepong digitali jabakalishi kisha na dosh maisha posh na maomre wa pale kana coach taxi na magego za ugoro zinawaka shinda torch za makuoch idhani mbaya lola mbota lola watch yeah kwa darasa mimi ndo teacher mimi ndo coach zimewaka zimeliet zimemwatch mbaraga deshe atunaka sheshe baby tudiokore na tukufanyage pesha
utotoni usipotembea utabebwa mgongoni 255 champion boy nite bwana Samata lota mapembe ongeze mkia na ukini beep tunakupigia let me make one thing clear bra staki kusikia so simba so chui so mamba yangu inatosha kujigamba na sina maneno kwenye kanga kazi